Hill, nicely played from Daly. The query is up. Hill, trying to turn it and does! Gordon Hill!
So I'm here at Mottram Hall with United legend Gordon Hill, who's over here in the UK with his ladies college team from the States. So Gordon, tell us about how your move to United came about.
Oh, I was playing at for Millwall at the time, and we were playing in a League Cup game, getting ready to play a Yeovil on a slope field. So we were playing inside London in, I think it was Dulwich Hamlet, that have a field that had a slide, a bit of a slant, and Gordon Jago happened to be the manager, and we was playing about half time. He came. I knew that a few clubs had been in for me, but I didn't know. I think I was a London boy getting ready for, might be playing. You don't really look at going to another club, but if someone shows interest, it's like, oh, your ears prick up and you want to say, okay, who is it? Well, that happened, and I knew that these two clubs were in. But when I was told by Jago at half time, okay, I pulled you off, he said, we've done a deal, we've sold you to Man United. And like, went, what? He said, yeah, we've done a deal. He said, all you got to do is go tomorrow, agree terms. He said, we've got to do it. He says, because the bank have told us we've got to sell you. So I was halfway going to Yeovil on Saturday in the League Cup with a really muddy field, or going up to Old Trafford against Aston Villa, which I didn't, which I now know. But of course, I went up with my, I met Jago at Euston, boots underneath my arm and my X-rays, up to Manchester. Gordon Clayton picked me up, and away I went, and that was it.
So Tottenham and Arsenal were interested as well.
Oh yeah, they put a bid in.
Did you get any say in the matter at all, or were you just told?
Well, you do get a say, but when you get that type of approach from maybe the Arsenals or the Tottenhams, you think you're staying in London, and I thought I was staying in London. I was quite happy in London. I lived here. This is where all my family was, and then all of a sudden, it's that you don't turn Man United down if they come in for you, because in them days they didn't buy a lot of players. They produced a lot of very, very good players. So being purchased by Man United just made you feel really more welcome. Tottenham came in the next morning with 125, but the deal had already been done. And I went up there in the first way. You go to Old Trafford and you go through the old gates, the doors, the big wooden doors, and then you go up the marble staircase, and all of a sudden you go into the office, and you got maybe 5 people that are very impressive people in the football world looking at you, and it all went from there. And next thing I do was watching Man City and United in the League Cup at Main Road.
The only ground in the country where over 50,000 people turn up every week. And such is the magic of Manchester United that defeat in the cup final has made no difference to their devoted fans. For the supporters who pack Old Trafford, following this famous club is still a way of life.
So if we move on to talk about the 76-77 season, right at the start of the season, what expectations did you have, or what was the expectations for the team and the club?
Well, I think because we had so many young players, I think it was a new. We knew that we were a bit special because the way that the boss Tommy Docherty wanted to play. I mean, he's had a good side at Chelsea, he had a good side at Aston Villa, he got a good Scotland playing, and the type of football was. I don't mind you scoring 2 as long as we score 3. So that type of football was open football, and that's how it started. And then all of a sudden, we started to look at the division, the League One, the type of teams we were playing, and we were finding that we were running over them and getting results that we may not have thought we got, and that automatically brings you, your confidence right sky high, and that's what we did.
Okay, so at 3 o'clock on that first Saturday of the season,
I was knackered. The first before that, when I made my debut at Old Trafford against Aston Villa, I trained for the rest of the week, and the training was completely different to Millwall. And of course, the first time I go out there, and it's like, and you're playing in front of like 55, 60,000 people, and then all of a sudden, like you're hearing everything, and you know the roar, and then at the end of it, but I don't think it was that. It was just knowing who had played at that ground before you, and you're amongst the legends. You're playing. You've been chosen to put on a number 11 shirt that was worn by one of the greatest.
So there were United players in the past that stood out to you?
Oh, crumbs. I mean, even in London, you knew who George was, you know, and you emulated that when you went training. You know, I want to be George, I want to be Bobby, I want to be Di Stefano, I want to be, you know, Puskás. And all these players, you might not have seen them play, but the names were on the floor because you wanted to, yeah, watch, you know, you see a clip of Puskás and you go, oh, Di Stefano. And these are all preached to you by your family, your brothers and friends around. And they say, I may not have seen Di Stefano, but the name sounded great. But I tell you what, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
So 75, 76, the title challenge just fell short. At what point did you realise that it had slipped away?
Well, I think it was when we played Stoke. Stoke beat us at Old Trafford 3-1. I think we knew then that if we'd have polished that one up and got result against them, then I think we'd have been in a good standing. But we lost that one, and everybody said, no, you know, you can't afford to lose that, and we did, and we finished behind Liverpool, which didn't please a lot of people, but we knew we were back, and I think we knew we were back when I think that Bill Shankly, the great Bill Shankly, said that there's a team from up the East Lancs Road that's going to take the title, and he meant us.
And that was the first season back up?
Yeah. And it was really good because I always remember going up the stairs after we played Liverpool, and I was coming down after a game, and Tommy Docherty and Bill were good friends because they both come from Scotland, and they were walking up, and I always remember what Bill Shankly said to me going up the stairs. I was coming up the stairs, and he was going, and he went. He said one day, one day, son, you'll be a great player. And I turned about 2 steps lower. I turned around and said, Mr. Shankly, I already am.
What did he say to that?
And he turned to the doctor. He says, I like this lad. So the confidence was there. So, you know, but you had to be confident.
So 75, 76 ended with more disappointment in the cup final. What can you remember about that day?
Well, we try not to remember too much, but we remember that we were always supposed to be the top dogs and, you know, the United favourites to win the FA Cup.
Were United complacent on the day?
Very much so. Very much so. We you know, we thought, okay, fine, it's Southampton, and of course they had a lot of old dogs in the team, you know, and we were complacent.
Did the manager do anything to try and prevent that?
Well, there's not much you can when you've got a team full of cavaliers that can play the game, and especially at a speed that like really took other teams by surprise. But Southampton, you know, it's funny things about cup finals that you know in your heart of hearts if you're going to pull it off. I can't explain the feeling, but you know your heart of hearts that the game is running away from you. And you're trying to get, well, that was all the game, because once we got started and it slowly went on and on and on, we knew that it was going to be a much, much tougher, an uphill task to get the result. And then when a few of us, and myself included, I had a stinker, absolute nightmare. When I don't get going, I feel terrible. And that really was what it was. And a couple of other players. I mean, Arthur Orbiston came on and he made his debut. He had a fantastic cup final. So Wembley affected certain players, and it certainly affected me in that game, because the game after that we played Man City. I scored 2 goals at Old Trafford. So was it a Wembley jinx, or was
it offside?
To this very day, I look at it now, because if today it'd have been offside, the rules. Then was he or wasn't he? I mean, that's debatable now. But whatever we say, spilt milk, we ain't going to get the cup back. You know, we had to wait and we had to wait and beat a good team.
So, obviously following that game, the manager made a rousing speech. He said he'd return the following year.
We all
to win
did.
the cup.
We all knew. We all knew that we were going to come. We all knew that we were going to come back. Even in the coach, we were talking about it. You know, we'll come back and we'll win next year. It's a funny feeling that, but we did.
There was no maudlin.
No, there was no oh gosh, the world's come to an end. You know, Southampton done well. They took their win. Great, pleasing, well done, and everything else. But we came back, and we knew we knew.
And obviously United strengthened in the summer, bringing in Jimmy Green off.
Yep. And
they went on to have the European campaigns. What can you remember about that?
Well, when you bring Jimmy in, Jimmy was the best uncapped player in England, and he should have had his cap way before that. But we brought him in, and he was very busy. Him and Stewie Pearson, you know, really dominated and started to set things alight. You had Louis that was bubbling. There was myself. There was Sammy McAree. There was Stevie on the right. So you was really buzzing against teams that would have said, well, okay, we'll handle one of them, but we can't handle two or three of them. And that was the beauty of us. We played 100-mile-an-hour football, but very controlled. We knew what we wanted. We knew where we were going. And we were challenging in Europe. I mean, until we come against the Italian masters, and when we turned over Ajax.
So what can you remember about the Ajax and the Juventus games?
Well, Ajax and Juventus, Ajax were a team that you knew were capable of producing it. Juventus, you knew they could produce it, and I think they went on to win it, and they produced it. I mean, we were at Old Trafford, and when we beat them 1-0, and that was brilliant.
Daly, Nickel, Hill, yes! Oh, what a cracking goal! First time left peg, woof! No chance at all for Zoff. Well, he looked the most likely, and so it has proved. Nickel's cross. It got a back flick, I think, from Coppell, and the first time left foot. And the first breach has been made.
But we knew that one wouldn't hold us in Turin.
And how did it feel playing for Europe, playing in Europe for United in games like
that? You know that the club's back, because from 1968 to 1974, we'd got rid of the players that were the legends, the Dennis Laws, the Bobby Charltons, the Willie Morgans. They'd already been pushed to the side, not pushed, but it had to be established a new squad. So for 6 years, the club had languished in the second division. They went into the second division, and they couldn't stay there. But they hadn't picked up any trophies at all in 6 years, which is unusual. And then all of a sudden, they come back into this, and they say, right, okay, fine, the second division. They stormed the second division. They took it by storm, because I was playing for Millwall. And then to join the club with that type of football that I'd seen the previous season made the decision easier for me to go there.
Did it? In Alex Ferguson, for example, always talks about European nights. As a supporter myself going to the games, European games always do feel a little bit different. Did they feel different to you as a player?
Well, yeah, because what you felt like is that you had your domestic, and then you had what they call the best of their country. And you wanted to do, you know what I mean, don't forget you only played 2 games, home and away, and if you got knocked out, you went, that's it. So you really concentrate on showing the teams what you was all about, and I think we did that quite well.
And obviously that 76-77 season, United did go on to win the Cup. Are there any games that stand out to you on the way to Wembley?
I mean, as a player, you don't count your goals on. I got 6 in the league. I got 6 in the cup. I got 3 in the League Cup. As a player scoring goals, you just concentrate on scoring goals, whatever game it is, and you don't really put it down to anything else. And I think just scoring goals, creating goals, playing with some fabulous players that all wanted the same as what you did was a bonus.
So what can you remember about the semi-final against Leeds?
The semi-final against Leeds was, again, Leeds were supposed to be this, powerhouse.
So Hill with his corner. as Leeds organise themselves in their penalty area. On the wind, a back header by Houston, and Jimmy Greenough! The break they wanted, with 8 minutes gone. There's the corner from Gordon Hill. Houston's beautiful back header. A missed kick there, and the number 8, Jimmy Greenough.
Did Leeds underestimate United on the day?
Very much so. I mean, you had great players that are playing for Leeds. Norman Hunter, Alan Clark. I mean, I remember nutmegging Norman Hunter and him chasing me around the field saying, "I'll break your leg." They were good side. They were players that were highly respected. But we took that as we respect you as players, but we're not going to bow down. And we did that, you know, and it was a great semi-final. And we knew that what we were talking about the year previous, we were coming back, and we did it.
In the Leeds and Liverpool sides of that era, they have a bit of a reputation for being physical.
No, that's an understatement. That, you know, Johnny Giles and all those people, Billy Bremner, they didn't want to kick you. I mean, bless their hearts, you know. They would stand on their own grandmother's head.
So it's true then.
Yeah. Norman Hunter chased me around the field for nutmegging him. Alan Clark said, "You've upset him." You know, you don't worry about it. You know, if you're like, "Oh, sorry, Norman, I don't want to." It's tough. You know,
okay.
Tough. You know, the ball's in the back of the net. Pick that one out.
And how did they respond to that?
Not very kindly. They shook our hands at the end, but I think if they could have cut our throats, they would have cut our throats because they'd got turned over. And I think that was the sign that they weren't the Kings anymore, because they were a great side.
So in the 77 semi-final was Steve Coppell's day.
Yep.
And the year before it had been yours.
No, it was brilliant.
What was Steve Coppell like to play with?
Greenough, Hill planted high and hopefully forward. Oh, that time Pearson won it in the air, and it might come now for Coppell. That's the second one, a brilliant goal for Manchester United. Stevie Coppell.
He's brilliant, Steve. I mean, he's a worker. We were two players in different contrasts. There was me that would score you 23, 25 goals, and there's Stevie that would stop 20, 23, 24 goals. And that's the way it was. I would not stop more than 3 or 4, but Stevie would do that. But then Stevie would score you 5 or 6 goals. So, and we worked together well, because the doc used to say, Tommy Cavanagh, at times when defenders wanted to find out what we were, we'd switch. So Stevie would come in on the right, on the left, and I would come in and then we'd switch again. So we did know if that's put down to technical genius, we'll put it down to technical genius. That you know, we changed sides, but we took the corners and stay there until the ball's back and then drop over. And
did you know he'd go on to be a manager?
Oh yeah, I tell you what, Stevie was great because he was a student, you know. And Stevie went on and he's a lovely fella. And it's funny because when we all changed, I lived up here, like in the Manchester area. Stevie lived in the London area, and he loved it down there, and I didn't.
Oh, so
it was reversed.
Yeah.
But with Stevie, you know, I tell you what, diamond.
But here they come, and now they can. And what proud men leading their teams out. Managers everywhere will tell you that this is the moment you fight, you sweat, you worry, and you work for so many years. And their hearts at this moment must be pumping with pride.
United got through to the cup final again in '77. That was a perfect opportunity to make up for the disappointment the year before. How did you feel in the build-up to that game?
Well, it's the same really. When you play Derby and they got greats, and then you play Leeds, they got greats. The feeling was like, you know, you don't really feel it. You try not to make the same mistakes as you did before, and we thought, would our luck be in to be able to tuck up a semi-final? And it happened that we were, you know, and then obviously we went, okay, we've tucked up Leeds, who were top one, and now I said, oh my God, it's Leeds, it's Liverpool. And they were going for 3 trophies. They're going for the league, going for the European, and the FA Cup.
So were you frightened of playing Liverpool?
No. I tell you what, no, not in the least, because when you got selected, and when I was very fortunate enough to be selected to play for England and be in the squad, there was a lot of the Liverpool players already in the squad. A lot of Liverpool players that were getting into the squad, same as us at United, we were getting into the squad. So the majority of the England squad was made up of United and Liverpool. So you'd get to know each other and talk. But the only thing you really didn't want to do was go to Anfield, because you knew you didn't get much. And then when Liverpool came to United, I think it was a case of they knew they could get it, but it was a confidence thing that after a while we knew that they wouldn't get it. We would turn them over. And so it was like they had the upper hand, but we were slowly turning it. Arthur Albiston had a fantastic game. Jimmy Nicholl came into it very well indeed. These are young pups that were coming through. You had Sammy McIlroy in the middle of the field. You had Pancho up front. But Liverpool had, Jimmy Case in the middle, and so you had that variety of being able to change it. Stevie Highway played on the wing, so you had that entertaining football coming from both ends.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Arthur Albiston coming on. He came on for Stuart Houston.
Yes, he did.
What was Stuart Houston like as a player?
Stewie was steady Eddie. Stewie would give me the ball, and he was told, don't go in his area, leave him alone, just support him, don't overlap him, he'll do the rest, he'll do all the business. And it was sad because we played Bristol when he done his ankle, and the ground at Bristol was like a mire heap, it was just mud, and Stewie went in and he twisted his ankle and broke it, and we were watching it at the time. The doc had given a few of us a rest in the stands, and we were part of the parcel, and then we saw it, and it was like he's out of the cup. So Arthur got his chance, and he took it with both hands. And I can't say no more. But Arthur was lovely to play in front of. I mean, that's the key to when you're playing with good players, is that they're comfortable playing with you in front of them. Stewie Houston, give you the ball. Like, there you go, go on. Arthur, I'll give it to you. He said, you just go. It was confidence, And I think that's really.
I mean, obviously you mentioned Jimmy Nicholl as well.
Yes, Jimmy Nick.
And Jim Holton, another player. What can you remember about Jim Holton?
Well, Jim was a gentle giant, Jim. I mean, he was so unlucky with what happened with him, with his, breaking his leg, and then, and playing, and then all of a sudden in Scotland playing again, and the ball hitting his leg in the kickabout, and it's breaking, same place again. Jim was great. Jim was fantastic, but Jim couldn't get in the side because you had you had Martin Buchan, who was phenomenal and very calm and composed, and then you had the generator. The nice guy was Brian Greenough. God rest his soul. He was absolutely super. He would come flying in, and he's got his England call up from it, and we would sit there talking about. We were all about the same age, and we were all talking about the way we were going to play. And it was good. And it was like you talk the stories, and then you go out and perform it.
I mean, in midfield, you've got Lou McCarry, Sammy McIlroy. What were they like as a partnership?
Oh, Louis was just an engine, and he was all over the place. And of course, what can we say about Sam? But Sam was another one with an engine and an absolute abundance of skill. And those two used to be able to get those goals that we wanted, that we were talking about in this new squad, in this new season coming up. You need those players. Lou McCarry would always pop up with 10, 15 goals. Sammy McIlroy would do the same. Your forwards get it. Now all of a sudden you're starting to become serious contenders. But if you're not doing that, and of course you had 4 of us that we could all, play. You got Stevie, you got Sammy, you got Louis, you got myself, you got Jimmy, you got Pancho. That's quite a formidable force to have, saying, well, okay, we might have only one. No, you've got 6 to contend with. And if you don't cover this one's looking dangerous, and this one's looking dangerous. And to be honest, we weren't 6'5". We were Jimmy was normal size. 5'9", 5 foot, nothing else. But I tell you what, when the ball came in the box, you'd know that those two were going up to challenge for it.
And in the squad as well, you got Dave McCreary.
Weedy McCreary, yeah.
My dad still thinks it's funny to this day to say McCreary sub.
Yeah, I mean, Dave came in and he was a young pup that came in, but he couldn't break into the team. You know, I mean, he was the so-called David Fairclough of United with a super sub, but Weedy, you could always get 100% out of Weedy all the time, and he proved to be a good asset, a very good asset. And then if you look at it, he moved to Newcastle, and he had a great 200 and 300 games for him. So he was very, very thought of.
So as a winger, what kind of strikers or forward players did you like playing with?
Anybody could head across it. When I threw the ball into the mixer, and I don't throw it into the mixer. I normally knew where I was putting it. I used to do a lot of training with a great player called Frank Blunstone, who was Chelsea and England, and he was a winger. And I always remember doing it at the Cliff, and I would have to 10, 15 yards outside the box on the left, and he'd knock the ball down, and I would have to put one, I'd cross off, and I'd have to sprint back. Then I'd do another one, sprint back, and about 20 or 30 of these later, I was knackered, you know, and I'd turn around and I'd say, Frank, I said, I'm knackered, and he would turn around and say, we only want one. And that's what you really concentrate on. I said, well, okay, fine. So you was taught to be able to put the ball in a position or in that box. But then somebody else would come along and say to Pancho or Jimmy, this ball's coming in, get to that space. So what you did, you threw it in, and they were there, and they were on the end of it.
So how do they rank amongst the players that you played with, Greenhoff and Pearson?
No, I tell you what, up the top rated. I can't. There's nothing I would say about it. I mean, when Pancho went and played for England, he was like a bulldog. He was very, very tenacious, and he was very sturdy, and he'd take a lot. I mean, in them days, you could kick a player 10 times before the referee said, "Don't do it."
Hughes with the header. Keegan with a header off McElroy. Oh, and Pearson put through by Greenhoff. Jones is after it. Pearson shot, goal!
Okay, so 77 beat Liverpool in the cup final at Wembley. There's the thing about the big Wembley pitch. Did it make it difficult for wingers to play on, or easier? Or is it even true about the big pitch?
It is true about the big pitch. It does. Wembley's surface has got a sapping of the energy, and it saps your energy very, very quickly. Whether it's the size or just the grass itself, but it has. It's better to. I like playing at Wembley when it was better in the evenings, as opposed to playing during the days, because they had that little bit of wetness, a little dew across the grass, and it used to be able to play it. When the sun was out and when we played that, it was hot. So it was not only taxing on you, it was also, it took it out your body as well. So yeah, Wembley still holds that problem.
So I mean, in that 77 cup final, all the goals were condensed into a very short period of time. United went a goal up.
Yep.
Liverpool came back.
Yeah, we got that goal. I mean, Pancho got a great ball, played through, and he put it down, chested it down, smacked it in the back of the net. Clemo let him have it on the near post. And then we were fought about 5 minutes later. Jimmy Case gets one on the edge of the box, gets it, turns and smacks it in, and we thought, oh gosh, now we've got a game.
And how did you feel?
Now we've got a game. Well, we knew that Liverpool were going to come back. We didn't know they were going to come back that quick. And then we started to play the way we wanted to play, and we started to get stuck into the game more. And we were fortunate enough that when the ball bounced and Louis hit that one, it came off of Jimmy Greenhoff's chest and spun in the goal.
Because it was well aimed.
It was like, well, I think it was going for the cameraman on the right side of the field. But hey, cameraman or not, we'll never know because it went in.
Hughes with the leap, but he's beaten in the air. Greenhoff trying to get in behind Tommy Smith and might succeed in doing so. And the ball's in the net. And it's got to be down to Jimmy Greenhoff, although Macari and Hill Well, that's an incredible turnabout, and it'll take the slow motion to sort that one out, Jack. Greenough right in there, fighting and tussling, and in the end winning. There's the shot, and it's 2-1 to Manchester United.
And when we heard the final whistle, we knew we'd done it. We knew we'd defeated them, and I think you could see on their faces that they were peed a bit. Because
and how did you feel? Because I mean, that was the best team in Europe at the time you'd just beaten.
Oh yeah, we knew that they knew that we were a side, and up and coming, and we knew that they were a top team, and they were just taking things by storm. And we picked the trophy up. We went round the field a couple of times. Liverpool were there, and we just, well, I did, and I just said to Phil Neal and company, I said, listen, go to Germany and win. Go to Germany and win the cup. I said, and he just said, thanks very much. He said, you're not bearing any problems because you've done your job.
I think
no matter what it is.
As supporters, we don't really get that you as players can be friendly with each other and have that respect. Because as a supporter, we would probably think we want Liverpool to go there and lose.
Well, that's right. I mean, we want it, but to think about it, at the time we were challenging European teams in every competition to try to we missed out with Juventus, and it was a case of at least one English team go and do the job, and it was fortunate and let's drag it back a year when Derby were going for 4. And they only end up, I think, with the league. Because after they played us, I think they went and got stuffed by AEK Athens 3 or 4-0. So, we didn't want that. We wanted them to go across. I think when you got that competition, when you're playing against foreign opposition, you are playing against foreign opposition, and they're foreign. Now, you can play against somebody that 2 or 3 of them that come from the same team.
I mean, that 77 final, it's iconic now, really.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of iconic pictures come out of it. There's the one with Docherty with the cup, the lid off the cup on his head. I mean, if Docherty had stayed, would United have won the league?
Oh yeah, we knew that. I mean, I found out about it walking on the beach in Ibiza, grabbing a 3-day quick, in the office holiday. And we didn't know, but Sammy McElroy had done the same. And so we weren't going together. We just happened to walk past he was lying down, I walked past, and he said, and I didn't take the notice, and he said, hey, Hilly. I went, Sam, you grabbed one as well, grabbed off the shelf holiday. He said, we've got some problems. He said, look, this situation's come up. He said, I know the club. He's gone. It's like, oh my gosh. And you think, oh well, and I wasn't thinking about anything but just keep playing. And then obviously they did the deed, got rid of him. And then
did it have any effects on the squad when he left?
I don't think they did. I think a lot of people said they thank God he's gone. A lot of people said, no, because the type of football that we were playing, I think you've got to look at it when he was talking with Bill Shankly going up the stairs. You can't let that type of thing affect you, and he didn't.
Because sometimes you find that players will use a manager leaving as an excuse.
Yes, absolutely. The players that ain't getting a game will always blame the manager. Always, and that was a situation that I don't know if they blamed him or not. I certainly didn't. He let me play. I mean, no matter how anybody else thinks about the guy, I did not think anything but he lets me play and lets me play well.
So did you enjoy playing under him?
I did. I loved it. He as I said before, he liked to say, well, okay, you score 2, we score 3. You score 3, we score 4. That type of football, that's prime. That's what United was all about. They did that in the second division with a lot of goals.
And how far could that team have gone?
It's like, how long's a piece of string? because we really wouldn't know, but we were ready to, as we said before, that Shanks had said there's a team from the East Lancs Road that's going to, that will take your position, and it happened.
So you were sold by United in the end, as was Brian Greenough, so 2 fan favourites out the door there, and you were replaced by Gordon McQueen and Mickey Thomas.
Correct.
Any thoughts on that?
They brought Mickey in because of, I knew he'd brought him in because, number one, he wanted him to do the work up and down like a Trojan horse. Wouldn't score you 25 goals, but work his socks off, and that's what Mickey did. And then you've got, I couldn't understand when Brian went, but he had some purpose, Sexton.
So do you think he was just a much more pragmatic manager?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you could put it down to that.
He's not fondly thought of among United fans these days.
He was, and people saw it, and supporters saw it, and even players. What do you do? Is it? It'd have a training session where you had to perfect something until you was literally walking. Literally walking to get it done.
You do hear about some managers that are methodical, like I once heard about Graham Taylor. He had Lee Sharp juggling a ball whilst counting backwards in multiples of 5.
I mean, there's another one. I mean, it might be nice to a lot of people, but he weren't England manager material.
No. Never
in a million years. But we've seen so many bad, like round pegs in square holes. Now it's a case of, if it's round, let's get our mallet and make it square.
So, I mean, looking back, who was the man to take over from Docherty then? Or was Docherty the man to stay?
Well, I think we're very, very harsh on him because Ron Atkinson did the same. And all right, it wasn't internally, but it was externally out with. I think they could have been a bit more lenient. I think they could have been more to the point of letting him see how he settles down, because they're wrong. Whether they like it or whether they don't, they're wrong. He's married to Mary now. He loves her to death.
And still together.
And they're still together. So, and don't get me wrong, Agnes was his. I think it was Agnes. Was it? And she was a diamond, but it just wasn't there.
I mean, obviously when he went, the team fell apart.
Well, the team fell apart because number one is that I don't think that the next guy could come in and handle what we were doing.
Do you think there was too many characters in the team?
I don't think so. I mean, characters in terms of what, doing this, doing that. The only flaw we had is that we wanted to win.
So there were players that wouldn't fit in with the system he wanted to play.
Then obviously we've seen that. I would have been one. I sat there with one game when I had to watch a Hungarian game when Hungary played England in the 9-1 thrashing, and I had to sit through it and then have a look see what Hungary were doing to us. And I wonder why. And he just pointed out the left wing at Hungary dropping back, and I couldn't fathom out for love or money. And what's the purpose of it, Dave?
I mean, have you any other examples of that sort of thing? I mean, supporters are interested to hear that.
I mean, basically, a training session would be, we'd do a free kick where the ball's played in, and Stewie or one of them would shout over, and Jimmy would step over the ball, and it'd be over, and then Jimmy would spin round, or Stewie would spin round and get the ball. If it wasn't working in one training session, and it was one morning when it was freezing, we kept on, and we couldn't get it right. And he was just looking for it. So he was quite happy for us to be walking through it so that we could go out, get off the field and get in the bath. And I always remember Lou saying, let it happen. And we went through it, and he went, great. And the lads went, thanks very much, let's get out of here, it's freezing. So those situations come up, and I just don't sometimes I just wondered what he was thinking. He was a very deep-thoughted person. He didn't let you try to play your type of football.
Was United too big for him?
Oh yes, yes, undoubtedly. You know that the club, the way they play, the way that the teams have played prior to that. At that time, you needed a personality for United, you know, because if they'd gone and sacked it, the Doc, and then they've got to hire someone with another lot of charisma like him, they may have wondered if they were going to happen again. And of course, when they brought Ron in, then Ron came in, and he was charismatic.
I mean, Tommy Docherty said if he'd stayed as manager, you and Brian Greenhoff would have stayed there all your careers.
I wouldn't have left.
Would you be happy to stay there under him?
Absolutely. Wouldn't have left because he tactically, and the technical side of the game may not have been the format of the day, but the charisma and character that he installed upon you, and the confidence let you do that, and that was something that's something that'll always stay with you. When a manager believes in your ability to be able to do this, and let you do it, then you all of a sudden get that confidence and you start to trust him because he's trusting you, and it goes both ways.
How much more did you have to give?
Well, if I would have been playing, if I'd have carried on, my dream, my aim was my personal was always 20 plus goals a year. 20 plus goals.
And how long could you have gone on and done that for?
I mean, it's I could have, you know, I did it at Derby. I went to Derby and started to score for Derby, but then a serious knee injury hit me, and I will never know how many caps I would have got. I would have never known how many goals I'd have got or what I could fulfill. When a player gets damaged, it's very hard to come back because well, it's not hard to come back. It's believing you can come back.
I mean, how down did you feel? Just to go back a bit, when you left United, what was that like?
It was all horrible. Because I remember the time that happened that I was told during the day at training that I was playing against QPR, and then I was called up a couple of hours later, said I wasn't going with the reserves, then I was, and then I wasn't, and I was. It was just too much, and I just said that, and he said, no, go with the reserves. And I went to the reserves, and I was at Preston, and I played half a game, and Jimmy Curran, who called me off, and said they've made a deal with Wolves, with Derby County. So I knew that he'd been planning all along. So I knew straight away that and it wasn't the writing on the wall. To me, I had that player's instinct that he wanted to shift, and I had 17, 19 goals at the time, and I was leading goal scorer, and I wasn't the case of me wanting to be leading goal scorer. I just loved it, but to be told, it made me think, what have I got to do? And it brought me back to when I sat in that office and looked, and I could see the Hungary game, and he wanted me to defend as much as Stevie, and he wanted me to score. Well, that's great if you've got, you know, an energising bunny. But for me, I'd done all my work from the halfway line to the goal, and then I would very rarely come back. Hence the situation with Martin, when Martin came back and smacked me around the head, because I was my defending. But I've not gone out to anybody. I never went out to anybody and said I'm the best defender in the world. I'm not. But put the ball anywhere near the box and it's in. You can't have your cake and eat it, because by the time you defend yourself and you're down there and then you've got to leg it up the other end and do all what you got to do, not too many players can do that.
Did you think that Sexton would achieve anything at United?
No, we knew, no.
Did the players know that right from the outset?
Yeah, I think the players knew it from the offset. You know, we knew that he was going to change it because he was completely chalk and cheese with the dog. Completely.
I mean, they say that managers mould a team in the image of themselves. Obviously,
Yeah.
Docherty did have a flamboyant side, as did Atkinson.
I think you noticed that more, though, to be honest with you, Chris, when you had Tommy Kavanagh still as his assistant, but still couldn't pull nothing out. So you see where the influence was coming from. Kavanagh was very an influential person with the Doc and Frank Blunstone, and he used to get together and talk real good football. But then all of a sudden it was like, okay, Dave's come in, and you got Cav with him, and Cav, I think Cav was a bit perturbed when he found that certain players were being given away or sold, so to speak.
You mentioned your injury that ended your career at Derby. How did it feel to you mentally?
When you can't do something that you're blessed to do and you've done it for 23, 24 years, you're wondering why, you know, and it's a feeling. Why me? Well, I don't say that anymore.
Because nowadays they have psychologists and all sorts to help players deal with things like that. Did they have anything back then?
No, they had a doctor that wouldn't talk to the surgeon and a surgeon that wouldn't talk to the doctor. And when they found out, they diagnosed it was quite bad, then the surgeon stepped in. I mean, it was quite raw. And, you know, it might be this, so let's put it in a pot for a couple of weeks. It comes out, your leg's thinner than your arm, and then you've got to build it all back up again. And you're carrying players like David Webb, who came to Derby and carrying him up and down stairs, and you think he's getting better, but what he's doing is just crushing the cartilage and making it worse. And you're watching, sitting there, and you're lifting weights up on your leg, and you're looking at all the players going. It was heartbreaking, because when the surgeon got hold of me the first time and said to me, I travelled over from Manchester to Derby, and I still have my house here, and I turned around and I said. And he said to me, after he twisted my knee a little bit, he says, I'm not guaranteeing you'll ever play top-class football again. That's like shooting me, he might as well shoot me. And of course, I wouldn't accept that. I'd never accept that. And I had the operation, and it was a crushed cartilage, which had been slowly being more damaged. And psychologically, I wondered, it took me 11 to 18 months to get it out of my system. Would it go again? Because it felt that way. Would it go again? So I really did know I damaged it.
I mean, you did play on a bit.
I played till I was 35, but it wasn't the level I wanted to play at. I'd lost that half a yard, and that half a yard was so critical to me that what I did is I dropped back from maybe being on the left as a winger. I dropped back to being left midfield, and I could still provide as much. But I knew, you know.
So when you know that you're not what you were as a player, are you just playing for the love of the game then, or are you?
Yeah, you're playing for the love of the game. Obviously, you're playing for a contract. I could still score goals. I could still do damage. But the psychological part of it, the mind games it was playing with me, was awful. I mean, it's awful, but, you know, not being good enough. What happens if this, and it only took me to when I went to QPR, and then I went to the States, to Canada to play, that I really got to a point where I turned around and said, if it goes, blow it. It's gone. I'll pack up. But I went to the States, and I came to the States, and I went, if it goes, it goes. That's it. And they bought me for a lot of money. They bought me for 200,000. And I went to Montreal, and it was like I had a new lease of life. I was like back to myself again, banging goals in and everything. And that's what the game can do with you psychologically. And it did that psychologically to me. And then when I was over there, Marseille and Roma wanted to buy me and take me back, but I didn't want to do that because I'd reclaimed what I was looking for. And then when here, I was Ron Atkinson was looking at bringing me back before Peter Barnes.
To United?
Yeah, you know, and so you hear all about it, but it didn't materialise. But I loved it then, because in Montreal, I wasn't worried, and I was working really hard. And my knee wasn't 100%, but it was about 95, 96. And it let me do everything I wanted to do, except maybe turn sharp.
I mean, it must have been tempting to come back to Europe though at that point, especially if you got clubs like Roma.
Well, I did and I didn't. I looked at Marseille. We played Marseille. We scored. We beat them in Montreal 2-0. I scored both goals, and it was like, oh, wow. And they said you could play. Now, obviously, maybe because French football may be a bit weaker. You don't know. But when the Italians come off, they just said, yeah, you come in. And whether they're going to use you in short spurts, I was quite happy over there, because I'd started to settle down over in Canada.
Hill, nicely played for Daly. The query is up. Hill, trying to turn it, and does! Gordon Hill!
So as we've talked today, you've obviously mentioned scoring goals. You've enjoyed scoring plenty of goals over the years. Goals are obviously important to you. Tell us about, how does it feel scoring a goal professional level?
To be honest with you, Chris, I don't think there's anything more special than the ball going in the back of the net. Just the pure ball rolling over that line, and knowing that you're going to get a bit of a breather, because you know if you're losing and you get you always think, I can get 2, I can get 3, and I used to play things that if this ball comes over, it's gone. I used to replay it in my mind before it even came, and if it came, then I would try to do that. If it didn't come, I wouldn't. But it's, if a ball came over, I used to be able to look at situations and say, right, everybody's in there, but I would in there and pull away, because I knew only one person might win it, but I would pick up the pieces. And I think when the Juventus goal went in, that's what I was thinking. I knew that the defender wasn't going to get it, but if I went towards the ball and then pulled away, I knew that it would come down. But I'd already made my mind up.
I once read a book by Steve Waugh, the Australian cricketer, and he said when he was batting well, it was almost like watching himself on telly.
It is.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. You see yourself, and you look through the goals, and the Birmingham City. Well, I knew straight away where that ball was going to go as I hit it, and I knew that Jim Montgomery, the goalkeeper, wasn't even going to smell it. But the one that really gets me was, we played against West Bromwich Albion, and the goalkeeper called, I think it's Tony Cotton or something like that, was in goal. But he's a smashing goalkeeper, young English goalkeeper coming through, and I remember I picked it up, and we're about 2 minutes to go, and I just hit it, and it went about 4 foot in the air, hit the inside of the post and put us back. We lost 3-2, I think, with Sir Regis when he scored. But it was just those type of things that I think the biggest compliment I got was Pat Jennings saying that one of the hardest players to play against was myself, because I was so unpredictable. And that's coming from, Well,
I mean, Jennings is a legendary
yes.
keeper.
Yeah.
Obviously, it brings us nicely on to another question, actually, because you mentioned Pat Jennings there, who's obviously legendary goalkeeper, tough opponent. Who else? Any other opponents over the years that you'd consider to be difficult to play against, or you had a lot of respect for?
I think you respect all the defenders that you play against, especially at that matter of time, because of the Division 1 was full of English defenders, not foreign, English, Irish, Scots defenders, and you didn't see the foreign defenders unless you got to the European. So you knew that if you was playing against the Italians, they'd come and they'd cut you down. You knew that if you was playing against the Germans, it was very, very methodically, bang, bang, bang. Spanish were very, very, very tricky, try to, like nick your ankles. But when you got a good English defender like Colin Todd that played for Derby, it was a thank you very much, whack the ball. Roy McFarland, another one, whack the ball. Another teammate that came to us from Villa was Johnny Gidman. He had the speed. He was unbelievable, Johnny. and we used to talk, and if we're playing Philly, he'd say to me, if you don't go down the wing, I won't go past you. But he knew for a fact that I was going. So you had that. But, I mean, going to your point, Chris, about scoring, I did it as a kid. And I would live it in the field, in the park, on the playground. What would happen if the ball dropped? What would happen if it went over? All those different scenarios you'd play through. And if one came off, you knew that you was doing the right thing at that time.
Which team did you support as a kid?
I didn't really. I mean, Mum and Dad gave us a Christmas kit, which is the old one. I think it was, 7 and 6, red kit or a blue kit. I got the red kit. My brother Graham got the blue kit.
So it was United.
So it was a red, yeah. And that was it. And it was just like that. And I've not really looked at blue kits after that.
So any better feeling than scoring at the Stretford end?
I think scoring at the Stretford end was a delight, and I think one of the nicest ones was when we played Peterborough in the cup, and I took it to the byline. I'd beaten the players. I took it to the byline, and Sammy was at the back, and I just put my foot underneath it and lifted it over everybody's head, and Sam came running in, and I've always remembered the delight on his face. The pure joy. And then the goals that you score, I mean, every goal to me was important and will be treasured. I scored some that were so-called spectacular, some that were, how did you do that?
Do you remember every single one?
No, not really. There's some that have been brought up to me. Do you remember this one? Until someone shows me, I think, until YouTube gets it, and then I look at it. I look and I go, I scored so many good goals.
You're tempted to just type your own name into YouTube and have a look for them. And
yeah, I mean, I don't look at myself too much. I try not to look at myself because they're great memories for supporters, fans. Stretford End Stretford End is very dear to me. In fact, as all of the United fans around the stadium, because if I didn't wave to one of them, I got booed. But I used to always wait to the last moment to turn around to the Stretford End. So I would stand there and they would call my name because they had names, remember? They used to call it, like Stevie Coppell on the wing. And we had to respond to it. And of course, and the Golden Hill, King of all, and I wouldn't turn round. Golden Hill, King of all Cockneys, and I knew.
So you'd make him do it
louder. And on about 3, then all of a sudden after the third one, I would just turn around and it would roar, which was it was great because then you're ready for the game, and they could see when you missed your frustrations. They could see that you wasn't out there to muck about, When you put the ball in the back of the net, it wasn't all these jumps up and runs around. What it was arms were up in the air, and the rest of the lads come around and pat you on the shoulder. Well done, well done.
So which team would you like to play in nowadays? If you could pick any team around the world
that I could play for.
Yeah, who would you play?
Menu.
Still play for United?
Oh my gosh, yeah, mate, without a shadow of a doubt. I spent today here while I'm here in this. I spent all day today at Old Trafford. I didn't look at what it had in the trappings. I looked at the field. I looked at the cliff. I looked at the Carrington. And I knew I'd made the right decision by what I did and when I played.
Right, thank you very much for speaking to us today. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed
Absolute pleasure, Chris.
So good night from me.
And it's good night from him.